All right, I hope you like that scene from Cobra Kai season 3. If you haven't checked out that show yet, it's an awesome show. It is probably PG-13 because of the language and fighting. So, disclaimer for the parents, you know, keep that in mind. But we're going to look at Miguel and Johnny's relationship, Johnny's character. We're going to take a look at archetypes again and whether or not he matches any and complex characters in this warm up after the video. All right. So, what do you notice about Johnny's relationship with Miguel? I would say the first thing that kind of stood out to me is that it's fairly equal. Even though Johnny's older and he's his teacher and mentor, Miguel's not afraid to be honest with him, right? Especially in this situation. Um, and Johnny's the same way. They're both really brutally honest with each other about how they're acting. In terms of, Johnny says he thinks he's quitting. Um, and Miguel says, "Yeah, you've quit on some things too." And in that regard, it's a very honest and raw relationship, right? Um, they do not hold back. There's no sugarcoating it. They are just straightforward, tell it like it is. And both are accusing the other of quitting or not trying so hard for one reason or the other. Miguel's not trying hard on his recovery from being paralyzed because he's too hung up on his girlfriend. Johnny isn't trying to get back his dojo and get back his students and get back to being a sensei. Um, and he's also not being real with Allie, the girl from his high school girlfriend, about who he is and what he's doing now. And he's calling him out. Miguel's calling him out on that too, right? You probably got hopefully a bit of a teacher sensei student vibe again, and a mentor mentee vibe. I mean, Miguel is straight up says, "You are a sensei. You cannot deny that." And then at the end, Johnny kind of, as he's sending Ali a message, he mentions that he is a sensei and that he really loves helping kids and working with them. Um, but what's really interesting about the scene is the roles kind of reverse, right? Johnny learns as much from Miguel in the scene when Miguel is really honest with him about how he's acting as Miguel has learned from Johnny. In terms of karate and being more confident and going after the things that he cares about. So it's a really interesting scene because we see that both are teachers and students in this particular scene. Cool scene between the two. All right. How you might describe Johnny's character. You might have said he's real or raw or honest, right? Straight shooter, tells it as it is, uses inappropriate language to do so sometimes. He's funny. You get a little bit at the end when he's sending that message to Allie. And rather than type out his true, vulnerable, honest feelings, he says, "Nah, forget about it." And he's like, "Nothing much, you," right? Like typical guy or bro behavior, not wanting to be up with their feelings, right? Or at least this kind of guy. Um, and he's also unconventional, right? He's strapping Miguel up by the harness and pulling him up. This might be his physical therapy, but we don't really know in this scene. And if you see other things he does to try to help Miguel walk, it's clear that he's willing to try anything out of the box to help him. Um, so he's very unconventional and orthodox with his methods, but he's still loving and supportive, right? He's over here helping Miguel try to walk in his free time, doing whatever he can to help this kid. And even though he's showing some real tough love in the scene, he's trying to tell him to kind of man up with his girl or be honest with that feeling or put it aside for now and work on this and work on that later. So, he is supportive even if he doesn't know how to show it in the best way in this scene. The other thing is he's kind of wise. Like he's trying to bestow some honesty on Miguel, especially throughout the show about like life can be hard and challenging. So you really got to like just go and get everything you want, right? So we see a little bit of that here. Like you got to really want to work at this, and we do. And so it's a kind of wisdom, maybe a street wisdom or just a brutally honest way to give the wisdom. Very different from Mr. Miyagi in the other clip. Okay. All right. So the other part of that was what archetype does Johnny follow? And this is a quick reminder of archetypes and how they're just familiar characters that we kind of see over and over again in different movies and stories. So I think you could argue that Johnny Lawrence is kind of the sage character. He does have wisdom and experience, and he's older than Miguel. And that may not come through 100% in the scene, but he does call him a sensei, just like Mr. Miyagi was Danny Sensei. And if you've seen the show, it's clear that he is a mentor and a teacher to Miguel. throughout the series, even if that doesn't necessarily shine through in this scene. Um, but he may not be this age because he's definitely not slow to join the fight, right? Like he is kind of first instinct is to fight. And if you see the show, you kind of know why that happens to him. So he doesn't quite match there, but I could see a really good argument for that. I mean, he does play that kind of new sage role, kind of working with the Miyagi character and doing some new things with it. The other one I could definitely see you guys mentioning is the rebel. He doesn't abide by society's demands. Here in this clip, he's kind of rebelling at how maybe you should help Miguel get better from being paralyzed or work towards walking again using these unorthodox methods. So the strength is independent thinking. He definitely does that. He doesn't always show them, but he definitely has virtues. He definitely believes in what's right and wrong, even if that may not be what society says is right and wrong. And that's kind of what the outlaw does. The outlaw sometimes it has its own set of principles or rules that are different from society if society is not doing what they should be doing, right? So the outlaw is usually using his rules for good. If there's things in the society that are corrupt or wrong in their rules or way of doing things. Owes no favors. I don't know if that's true, right? If you know his background, he opens the dojo with money from his stepdad, and he it seems like he owes favors to John Kreese, his former sensei. So that part doesn't necessarily fit. I think he's definitely self-involved, and if you've seen some of the things he does in the show, he definitely has done some things that are questionable, maybe criminal. And so, yeah, but he's also very selfless. So he's kind of a mix of these two, a little bit of both and not really. And remember, that's okay. Characters can be both. He doesn't have to be specifically one or the other archetype. And that's what makes him interesting, right? So I would say Johnny's a really complex and believable character. He's really relatable. Everything he says or does, you're like, yeah, that fits him. I get it. I don't feel like that's out of place for who he is or where he is in this world. So these are some questions you want to ask yourself as you're looking at complex characters, right? Do they change and grow over time? Do they act differently around certain characters or in different situations? Do their beliefs go against the family and the group? And we see some of these playing out with Johnny and also Miguel, right? So we definitely see Johnny change over this scene, right? He comes out being real tough with Miguel, and then when Miguel comes right back at him, he's like, "Yeah, Miguel, you're right. I was wrong." And then he goes back and he reaches out to his girlfriend, but he doesn't change all the way. He's not like fully vulnerable and honest with her the way Miguel probably would want him to be, the way Miguel said he was with his girlfriend. But he softens up a little bit. At least he reaches out and says, "Nothing much, you." Right? He's working, he's changing, he's growing, but he hasn't fully changed or fully grown. He hasn't fully reached his potential. Definitely acts differently around certain characters or in certain situations. Like with Miguel, he was very honest and real and affectionate. And then with Ali, he's a little bit more tough guy, right? So we see some complexity there. He is a flawed character. If you've seen the show, even in that scene, the way he kind of comes at Miguel might have been a little flawed and might have been a little nicer, more gentle with him. But he's still likable and admirable in some ways. He's still helping him. He's still there as a loving, supportive presence in Miguel's life, even if he's not doing it in the most perfect way, right? So we definitely see that playing out. Miguel, you might have thought, whoa, he's coming at his teacher pretty hard here, but I think it plays out in this culture and location and time, like present time. The setting and the culture is, or in this setting, like he can be real with him. Like he wouldn't necessarily have done that in the dojo in front of the other students, right? He would definitely do this kind of privately in this specific moment, at least to that degree of honesty and just kind of lashing out to him. So even Miguel there shows some complexity as well, and we see that too. He kind of gets mad at him, but he's real with him. He's real with Johnny, and then he goes on to being able to walk again. So we see like literal physical growth from him in that regard. All right. So these are some things to keep in mind when you're thinking about whether or not a player character is complex or kind of just fitting a specific archetype. And what's great about this discussion is as long as you're going to go back to the scene or the text to kind of talk about that, there's a lot of really good answers. I think you could really argue about whether Johnny is a sage or an outlaw rebel or both, or maybe neither. Maybe he's just like this complex character, right? But that's fun. It's a fun discussion. It's like, how is he changing? Why is he changing? Is he this or is he that? The same with Miguel. So don't get hung up on a character has to match a specific archetype all the time throughout. In fact, most characters don't. Most of them start that way and evolve or start as a mix. But some characters stay that way. And when they do stay that way as archetypes, it's for a very specific reason. There are all these writers' choices and directors' choices are keys to theme.